Welcome, viewers. It is not too late to wish you once again Happy Diwali. It is celebration time, and world over, this particular season is full of festivity and celebrations. Today, as usual, once again, we are with you for discussion on very important subject related to efficient security management. And when we talk about security management, managers, whether these are security managers or the top manager, project in charges, head of organization, chief of organizations, CEOs, they need to make decisions. And when they make decisions, a lot is dependent on quality of decision. They need important input before they make decision, and situational awareness helps decision makers throughout an organization to have the information and understanding available to make good decision in the course of their work. It can be focused specifically on helping people and organizations protect their assets, protect their manpower, protect their products. Towards this objective, a good security professional will have right balance of mentech and ears to the ground. We are happy to have Chuck Krueger with us for the discussion. He is a renowned security consultant, is currently working as Regional Director Asia at the Ackerman Group at Thailand. He is based at Bangkok. He is US Army Special Forces veteran. He did B.Sc in Applied Science and obtained master degree in political science, and also did masters in management and business administration. This YouTube live discussion is conducted by International Council for Industrial Security and Safety Management. Welcome to the discussion, and Chuck, once again, we are very thankful for you to spare your time and agree for this discussion. What exactly security managers look when we talk about situational awareness? Chuck, your time.
I'm very honored to be invited to appear today. I found that as you mentioned, in order to make good decisions, you have to have valid, good information, timely information. And in one effort of this, or a facet of that, is situational awareness. And I've found that too many times at an individual level, at an organization level, at national levels, the awareness of the current situation that the people are dealing with is much less than it needs to be and should be, and it results in less than favorable results many times. It really comes down to situational awareness is an ability and an effort to observe the current situation and to accept what the current situation is. Too many times in our lives, human beings are driven by what we want to see, what we want to have, and we have a hard time accepting that reality, it doesn't mimic that. And so really, again, situational awareness is an ability, an effort to observe the on-ground situation, pay attention, and try to understand and gather as much information as possible. And this year alone, just recently, I think April of this year, the U.S. Army published a new training circular of 300 pages just regarding this subject, and basically admitting how important this subject is. And we're talking about situational awareness. A subset of that is spatial awareness, and it's basically when you're talking about the two. Spatial awareness is just knowing of where you as an individual or organization fits into the environment that exists, the physical environment with living creatures and inanimate objects. To expand on that, then with situational awareness, it's taking that and also analyzing and trying to determine what actions are being taken, what actions preceded us, and then what actions might be expected in the future. Situational awareness is, as I mentioned, it's a really an effort in gathering facts and trying to identify the current situation that we're dealing with. It really costs very little, other than attention and giving it the importance individually and as an organization. It actually, speaking of it in a scientific, medical science fact, it's dealing with the reticular activating system that is in the brainstem, and it's actually something that has been and will be in our bodies. It's just a matter of how do we harness that activity positively. With this effort, our five senses that we're born with are very important and are taken for granted much of the time. And speaking of, for instance, sight, where the human species is the most important sense we have, it's many times people don't understand that we assume that our eyes are cameras and what we see is pure and honest and unaltered, where in reality our minds, through past experience, our past experience and what we know, filter. And so the information we get from our eyes we have to take into consideration has been altered somewhat by our own brains. Our sight, even with glasses or contacts, you can improve on your sight. You actually, in the use of your sight, you can train it to be more observant and use your sight more actively. 1/3 of our brain's processing effort is used for sight. It's a massive effort on the part of a human species. Hearing is also very important, and it's many times it's not understood how important hearing is, and we assume that animals are it's far more important to the animals than us. Where in essence, we humans hear things 20 to 100 times faster than we see things. So our hearing is very important to us, and we should never downplay that fact. And of course, all of the senses, but in particular sight and hearing, is very critical and is basic in our survival instincts. Smell is also important, not quite as important as sight or hearing, but it's, again, underrated. Dogs and other animals hear thousands of times better than we do, and yet it's still very important to us. Many times, just smells, we're able to determine even emotions by smells sometimes. And so again, it comes down to, we have our senses, we're probably underutilize them, and we need to train them more and pay attention to them more. The senses of touch and taste are not quite as important in awareness as the other senses, but they do serve its purpose, especially if we aren't able to see. In the case of darkness or black environments where there's no light, the senses of touch and not so much taste, but touch can be very important. And combined with the five senses that we've talked about, there is more leading or more information and evidence to believe that we've got a sixth sense. And we call it intuition, expertise, gut feeling, female intuition, mother's sense, sixth sense. But I think we have to understand it. Sometimes we're referred to as we see something, we feel something, and the hairs on the back of our neck stand up. We feel that there's something wrong. I think it's important for human beings not to ignore that, to ponder when that occurs, and to perhaps adjust what our next action is going to be, driven by this sixth sense. And in the situation awareness of everything we've talked about, we use that to establish a baseline, an idea of what normal is, what is acceptable in context to our safety. And by honoring that, by observing that, by paying attention to that, we can encourage the fact that our safety is better than it would be if we didn't observe it. The biggest obstacle in our situational awareness and our safety is ignoring that what we can determine is normal and safe. There are, beyond that main obstacle of ignoring what normal is and that to safety, physically it's a lack of communications and quality of communications, and having a tunnel vision where we're ignoring facts and reality that could be helpful for us. The other issue is emotional and mental state, and in particular our ego versus humility. And there's normal bias in the sense that we're used to a normalcy, and we don't want to find things that will disrupt that normalcy in our comfort level. The other one is another obstacle to finding situational awareness is it's a competency bias where we don't know when something is irregular or abnormal. Very quickly, people might ask, well, why is situational awareness needed? And it really comes down to avoiding panic. When we're in a situation where something goes awry and we feel threatened, if we panic, our actions usually are not very productive. They can be counterproductive and really cause us more danger. Where fear, which is natural, and harness fear and avoid panic and making constructive action, taking construction action, then can produce good results. In the end, everything that quickly been covered here, it enables us to have good critical thinking so we can make good decisions. So in the end, we can encourage ourselves to be in a safer situation and others that we care about and our organizations that we represent. Now, this has all been in a nutshell, and it's just a summary. And at this time, if anyone has any specific questions that is very pertinent to their situation, we'd like to entertain that or those.
Chuck, when you talk about situational awareness, I immediately recall if any organization needed it, it was probably Union Carbide or the atomic plant at Chernobyl.
Uh-huh.
They had their SOPs never used. They were stages of alert, never acknowledged. So when you talk about processing of information towards situational awareness, which is a kind of enabling tool for decision makers, you are talking about collection of information. But this information need to be processed. It cannot be raw information, because for the decision making authority to process this information, raw information, would itself will be big challenge. So how do you see processing of information, channelizing it to the entire organization so that at different location, decision makers use this situational awareness for their decision making?
I think, as you mentioned, many times the information is available. I think it's important in leadership to create a culture where people are not afraid to speak up, even though they might bring information that is unpleasant, downright ugly, but it's appropriate and to the conditions that exist. And so the responsibility lies with the leadership, supervisors, managers, to encourage the staff of your organizations to be your eyes and ears and to communicate and to not be afraid or to be judged negatively for bringing bad news or inconvenient news. And then also, certainly in this, you've got the information flow. Then it's a matter of how do you process it, and it takes some planning in advance and some practice and some actual exercises in identifying shortcomings and identifying how your different efforts will come together that will make a proper analysis and a appropriate plan for action.
Another question which comes to my mind, through different sources, information is collected. And these sources would be either the technology based or human intelligence based. When we talk about technology based information, we need to have many systems at one platform. There will be alarms through alarm system. Alarm management becomes big challenge. There will be CCTV systems at different locations, and there need to be central command and control center. So various systems, whether it is access control system, alarm management system, CCTV system, or asset management system, these need to be on one platform and available to all the decision makers. So here question is, towards situational awareness, we have big challenge of integration of technology. Do you see a problem or do you see opportunity here?
Well, I think the advancements in technology. There's no doubt it's made things more easier for us and given us products that we wouldn't even have without it. At the same time, like any tool, technological advancements can be used for good or bad, have a cost, must be integrated properly, and shortages have to be acknowledged. And also we have to realize that our adversaries, the evil in our world, have technology available to them. And we have to understand what possibilities and capabilities they have and how we may defeat those or at least control their damage.
There were very good indications about 5 years back. In fact, people started talking about them about a decade back. I have not heard much of those technologies. I am referring to wearable technologies and Internet of Things. It was considered that for security professionals, these will be very handy technologies. These will be in position to provide us situational awareness instantly. Have you seen a promise fulfilled by these technologies?
Well, as I mentioned, I think there's no doubt we can't deny, we're foolish to deny the fact they exist. It's how can we harness their capabilities in the most meaningful fashion for us, and also be honest with ourselves and kind of keep abreast with our technical experts on their shortcomings and their limitations and the cost of maintenance. And when we do have the technologies, we ultimately have to have the right people in place to maximize the efforts in using those technologies. And we have to communicate. We have to use the same skills we were using in the past with management, but now using technologies as useful tools, um, very useful tools, and sometimes tools that are have abilities that we have never seen in the past. And uh, it's going to be a great challenging time for us because we are having things that are occurring faster and moving farther than ever in history, and certainly in our lifetime, enabling us to do things, good and bad, much faster and far in advance of what we ever thought would be true just a few years ago.
In the beginning, you mentioned about elementary sources for situational awareness. You talked about smelling. You talked about perception of security personnel through the sensory organs. Smelling is something which is very important either in food processing industry or oil and natural gas or petroleum processing industry, where you can smell chemicals and you know whether something is wrong or normal. In fact, in food processing industry, kind of smell which goes around in, it is considered, part of the climate, part of the environment, and any foul smell gives indication that things are going wrong. Similarly, oil and gas industry, again, smell makes hell of a difference for security and safety personnel. They smell unusual thing and they know that this is something which causes alarm. But when we talk about technology and combination of human intelligence, there's something which we can look up to and feel reliable. When we talk about only the human intelligence today, or when we talk about only the technology for situational awareness, I think we go wrong. So, a good security professional would love to have a balanced combination of both the input. As good security consultant of your reputation, how you see the elements of technology and human workforce making good situational awareness uh, program?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Uh, Again, I think our challenge with technologies is seeing how they can be applicable to, in this case, situational awareness, and how can we help our five senses with technology that's available. And I think it's going to be a major challenge because, again, it's happening so quick and it's taking us so far. And many times our experts are younger people who are lacking perhaps in other experiences, life experiences. So maybe they're discounted, or maybe they're overly amplified of what they can produce and what they can contribute. But I think it's a very interesting time, and a time that there's no doubt that what we're going to have in 4 or 5 years, you and I aren't talking about now because we haven't seen it. We don't realize it's there. But certainly the ability that they're coming up with artificial intelligence and the sensors they have on people's behavior and on their physical postures, it's almost mind-boggling, and it's a large challenge to keep abreast of how new technologies and especially electronic technologies can contribute, and then at the same time how they can help our adversaries or people who wish us harm to aid in their efforts to contribute a danger to us.
You are very well known security consultant. Don't share your professional secret, but our viewers would like to know how you respond to a situation where an organization has many locations, each having their own CCTV system, access control system, asset monitoring system. And as security chief, one would like to have input of all those systems at one location, so that as security chief, one is able to evaluate the information and share with the top management for their decision making. So what would be the ideal setup you would like to have in an organization which presently is working on standalone systems?
Ooh, you're catching me short. I think as you mentioned, I work as a regional director for Asia, and I work all of Asia, which is China, Korea, Australia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Japan, on and on and on. One thing that I'm completely reminded of when I go and launch, and our nature of operations, we're pretty small and I guess fleet of foot, and depend on, and have found that when we go to a location, the problems are local, are unique in some respect because it's where it's at, and at the same time the solutions are going to have a local flavor to it, and we have to tap into and work and be assisted by local assets that know their environment better than we fellow travelers, as it were. So I think through it all, we have to understand, as much as we want to say that we're all alike and we all think the same, there's a lot of different assets and facets of our lives that are unique to certain localities, be it national, even subnational or state or district, that we have to understand that one product, even within your corporation, may work well for the corporation, may work well in most locations, but in a certain location and more than one location, it doesn't work so well. That there are limitations that we have to identify, and that's where communications come into play of coordinating, cooperating with one another through the different means with the different locales. I have found that in my travels going to any number of countries, that details what's come out that the corporate headquarters in the rear wasn't even aware of, and they were in the business for 20 years or more. And especially when you get into global efforts where you've got different nationalities, different religions, different biases and thought patterns and educational systems, there's a lot of room for error when you add in human beings to anything. And I think it's important to admit that to ourselves and realize that we humans are horribly imperfect, and too many times we expect perfect results, and rarely does that really happen.
Chuck, the question which I asked now has come through WhatsApp message to me, and it is about we have not mentioned about Central Command and Control Center. So viewer wants to know how you look at the concept of Central Command and Control Center, which exactly is doing what we are talking about, making all the information available, processing it for decision making. So how do you see Central Command and Control Center serving the purpose of situational awareness?
Well, again, a command and control center, it's a center, it's a decision making base. It sets the example, it sets the tone for other subunits. So, as far as situational awareness, it's a matter of finding information and making sure the information is disseminated among the other parts, other places. At the same time, coordinating and being the adult supervision and helping the other units anticipate, learn from other locales and localities of through experience of events that have perhaps happened in one location, haven't happened in another location, and they're not aware of it. So a center, again, by the name, is a place where a clearinghouse, a place that offers mature, more insight than the single units have by themselves, taking advantage of the corporate effort of the different parts and pieces. So it's more like a parental figure of trying to help people who may be limited because of their local settings and their experience and their abilities and the assets available, and hopefully enabling them to be able to tap into those through us, and by us giving them advanced notice, advanced experience, and perhaps some insight of past experiences.
Chuck, we are at the close of this discussion. Situational awareness for security professionals is a real enabling tools, not only for security professionals, it is also for top management. For making good decision, they are always depending on quality of information which is brought to them. Most of the time, either from operation and maintenance team or fire and safety team, and most importantly from security team. As security and safety professionals, it is our endeavor in International Council of Security and Safety Management to make our members aware of what is happening around us, what are the new ideas which thought leaders share with real professionals. And you have served the purpose immensely well when you talk about situational awareness. For security consultant of your reputation and position, we feel immensely thankful for you to spare time and efforts in educating our viewers. Our motto is, let's professionalize the professionals. You have done excellently and exceedingly well for meeting our objective. Thank you very much, Chuck. And I'm sure that in ICISS and all our members, we would love to hear from you again on some different subject, on different topics. Till then, uh, wish you good luck, good health, and remain cheerful always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.